Toby just bit me because I tried to throw out a cardboard box. That was the first sentence I yelled at my sister over the phone, and I meant every word. It wasn't a full bite, more of a firm nip. But still, Toby, my 12-year-old golden retriever, the same dog who once backed away from a cricket because it looked at him funny, had just lunged at me over a piece of trash. And not just any trash. A plain, beat-up cardboard box with no labels, no markings. Nothing but dust and the quiet weight of forgotten years. That's not normal dog behavior. Not for Toby. It all started early that Saturday morning. I'd been meaning to clean out the garage for months, and finally had a day with no plans, no obligations, no excuses. Coffee steaming in my favorite mug, flannel sleeves rolled up, boots laced tight. I began pulling out boxes, bags, and holiday decorations buried under layers of cobwebs and time. The air smelled of motor oil, damp wood, and the faint sweetness of old paper. Toby, as always, followed me out, padding softly behind with that goofy grin of his, tail sweeping like a metronome set to content. He loved keeping me company. Even when I was just sorting through junk, he'd sit quietly, watching, as if my presence alone was enough entertainment for the whole day. I'd just finished clearing a stack of bins labeled "Old School Stuff" when I saw it. Tucked in the far corner, half collapsed under a tarp. A plain cardboard box. No Sharpie scribbles, no tape labels, just silence wrapped in brown paper. It looked like the kind of thing you'd toss without a second thought. I nudged it with my boot. The corner crumpled with a damp crunch. "Definitely garbage," I muttered. Toby barked. Sharp, sudden, loud enough to make me jump. "Relax, buddy," I said, reaching down. "Just some trash." That's when he moved. He leapt between me and the recycling bin, planted his paws firmly, and growled. Not the playful tug-of-war growl from his puppy days. This was deeper, protective. His lips curled back just enough to show teeth, and his eyes, those warm, honey-colored eyes, locked onto mine with an intensity I'd never seen before. Then he lunged. It wasn't an attack. It was a plea, a warning. But don't you dare. His teeth grazed my wrist as I jerked my hand back. I dropped the box. Instantly, Toby calmed. He turned, lay down beside it, and placed one big golden paw gently on the lid, as if guarding a sacred relic. That's when I called Susan. "Toby just bit me," I said. "Are you bleeding?" she asked. "Barely. It's not the bite. It's what made him do it. He's never done that. Not once." She paused. "What's in the box?" "I don't know. That's the thing. He won't let me near it." "Well," she said slowly, "don't throw it out. Bring it inside. Let him guard it if he wants to. Maybe he remembers something." "Like a doggy time capsule?" I laughed. "Don't mock the dog," she said seriously. "He clearly knows something." So I brought the box inside. Toby followed right behind me, never taking his eyes off it. His paw still resting lightly on the top, as if to say, "I've got this." I set it in the corner of the living room and went to wash the faint red mark on my wrist. When I came back, he was lying there, curled around the box like a lion protecting its den. The rest of the day passed in quiet tension. I tried to ignore it, watched football, vacuumed upstairs, even washed the dishes by hand, which I never do. But my eyes kept drifting back to Toby, who hadn't moved an inch. He didn't growl anymore, but any time I stepped within 3 feet of the box, his head would snap up, ears forward, eyes alert. By dinner time, I caved. I sat cross-legged on the floor, a few feet away, and spoke softly. "What is it, buddy? Why is that thing so important? You know I wouldn't throw out anything special on purpose." He looked at me, then nudged the box with his nose. "You want me to open it now?" His tail gave one slow, deliberate wag. I took a deep breath and inched forward like the box might explode. Toby didn't flinch. He just stayed close, his warm presence a steady anchor in the room. I peeled the top open. It crackled, damp, aged, like it had been sitting through seasons of forgotten garage humidity. Inside, layers of yellowed newspaper were folded with care. Beneath them, a red flannel blanket I hadn't seen since I was a child. The same one Dad kept in his old blue truck, the one I thought Mom had thrown out after he passed. Toby let out a soft, trembling whine. I pulled the blanket out gently. He sniffed it, then gave a low, contented bark, the kind he used to make when Dad scratched behind his ears. There was more. An old photo album sealed in a plastic freezer bag. A squeaky squirrel toy, Toby's very first, the one he'd slept with for years. I held it up. He leaned forward and squeezed it once with his mouth. The tiny squeak echoed like a memory-made sound. And at the very bottom, a small velvet box. It wasn't dusty like the rest. It looked preserved, protected. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was Dad's watch. Not just any watch. The one he wore every single day of his life. The one we searched the hiking trail for after he collapsed and couldn't find. The one we assumed had been lost to the earth forever. I couldn't breathe. "Oh my God, Toby," I whispered, tears blurring my vision. "You remembered. You saved this." I sank to the floor, the weight of years collapsing around me. Memories flooded in. Rides in Dad's truck with the windows down. The flannel blanket over my lap. Toby's nose poking through the gap. The wind ruffling his fur. All of it, wrapped in this one forgotten box. I don't know how it ended up buried in the garage. Maybe I tucked it away during the fog of grief and forgot. Maybe Mom hid it, hoping to preserve it for a day I'd be ready. But Toby never forgot. That night, I let him curl up beside me on the couch with the blanket. He fell asleep with his head on my lap and the squeaky squirrel clutched gently between his paws. I barely slept. I kept looking at the box, the album, the watch, each item a thread pulling me back to a time I thought was gone forever. The next morning began with sacred stillness. Sunlight spilled through the blinds. Toby pressed against my legs, warm and steady. The red flannel still covered us. The squirrel toy lay like a sentinel beside his paw. I didn't want to move, didn't want to break the spell. But life always moves forward. I slid out gently, made coffee, and stood before the box under the coffee table. The photo album waited. I unzipped the freezer bag and opened it. The first page hit like a punch and a hug at once. There I was, 4 or 5 years old, standing in front of Dad's blue truck, holding Toby as a tiny, floppy-eared pup. Grass stains on my overalls. Dad's hand on my shoulder. Mom must have taken the photo. June 2009. Page after page unfolded. Toby's first bath, Dad teaching me to throw a baseball, camping trips, birthday cakes with too many candles, summer afternoons that stretched into eternity. Toby rested his chin on my knee as I turned the pages. Every so often, he'd sigh or grunt, as if remembering alongside me. Then I found a photo I didn't recognize. A wood-paneled room with a stone fireplace. A green recliner, and Dad holding both me and Toby. The date, December 2013. "Do you remember this place?" I asked. Toby perked up. I snapped a photo and sent it to Susan. "Do you know where this was?" "Wait, that looks like Grandpa Charlie's old cabin in Pinefield," she replied instantly. "We used to go there every winter." I hadn't remembered. But Toby stood up and walked to the front door. "You want to go?" he barked once. And so began our journey, not just across miles, but through time. We drove to Pinefield. The cabin stood weathered but proud. Inside, everything was as it appeared in the photo: the recliner, the stone hearth, the mountain painting above the fireplace. Toby walked straight to the painting. I lifted it and found a hidden hollow. Inside, a tin box filled with letters from Dad. Dozens of them, written in the months before he died, addressed to me. "If you're reading this," the first one began, "I hope it means you're older, maybe even stronger than you feel right now. I wanted you to have something to hold on to if I couldn't be there." I read them all. Each one a love letter. Each one a lesson. Each one proof that even in death, Dad was still guiding me home. Toby sat beside me the whole time, as if he'd known all along. From Pinefield, we followed clues hidden in photos, letters, and memories Toby carried in his heart. He led me to Stillwater Lake, where we found a map beneath the north dock, to our old house, where we unearthed a metal chest buried under the treehouse stump, filled with childhood drawings, a baseball glove, and Toby's journal, written in Dad's hand. We visited the fairgrounds, where Toby's old, friendliest face ribbon waited behind the red booth. We walked Miller's Trail, where a mason jar held a compass and a note. Love isn't about getting there. It's about walking it together. Each stop was a piece of a puzzle only Toby could solve. He wasn't just remembering places. He was remembering us. The boy I was, the father I lost, the dog who never stopped loving either of us. Weeks passed. Toby grew slower, his steps more measured, his breathing deeper. But the eyes never lost their light, and his tail still wagged, softly, faithfully, every time we found another piece of our past. One morning, he led me to a quiet chapel in Grant Hollow. Behind it, a garden with a plaque, in memory of the dogs who loved us, and the ones we still love. He lay down beneath a maple tree and sighed, a deep, peaceful sound, like he'd finally come home. The final letter waited in my pocket. I hadn't opened it. I knew it wasn't time. Until the morning we returned to Pine Hollow Cabin one last time. The fire crackled. Toby lay by my side, wrapped in the red flannel. I pulled the letter out. It wasn't about a place. It was about this moment. "If this is the last one," it read, "then you've done everything right. This letter isn't about a place. It's about a moment. And this is that moment, when you sit with him. No more clues, no more digging. Just stillness, just being. That's all he's ever asked of you. That's love." I looked at Toby. He looked back. No words needed. We stayed there as the sun set, as the stars came out, as the world grew quiet. The next morning, I made breakfast, shared it with him, walked with him to the porch. By sunset, his breathing had slowed to a gentle rhythm, and as the last light faded behind the trees, Toby gave one final sigh and was still. I wrapped him in the red flannel, carried him to the clearing behind the cabin, and laid him to rest with his treasures: the whistle from the fair, the compass from the trail, the photo from Stillwater, and Dad's final letter. I smoothed the earth over him and sat in silence. He wasn't gone. He'd shown me the way back to everything that mattered. And in the quiet that followed, I knew his journey wasn't over. Because love like his doesn't end. It echoes, it lives, it walks beside you, always. Now I write his story. Not just for me, but for anyone who's ever loved a dog. Because sometimes, the ones who remember everything are the ones who teach us how to live. Toby didn't just guard a box. He guarded my heart, and he never let go.